Welcome, 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 welcome. Alex Beard is a renowned artist best known for his abstract naturalism, wildlife compositions, a best-selling author and illustrator with Tales from the Waterhole. And you wouldn't believe how beautiful. This is a trilogy of 3. I have 2. And one of the other wonderful things that he does is he autographs them specially, and you get a little picture. Like, can you see? Isn't that fabulous? So I now have a granddaughter, and I've been saving these for a special occasion, and I'm so excited. Look at this one. Having a little show and tell here because I'm just so delighted. Already getting her crown. The Lion King. They're kind of like Aesop's fables, stories with missions, and wait till you hear about the lions and tigers and elephants. He wrote A Brush with Nature, and his newest book, The Birds, is just come out in September, and we'll be featuring that one. And I'm going to be signing up to get my signed copy, because if you order it off his website, then you can get a signed autograph just like one of those from alexbeardstudio.com. There it is. He's a dedicated conservationist who founded the Watering Hole Foundation. He was born in New York, as was my son, and is based in New Orleans for over 3 decades. His work graces collections like Ogden Museum and the New Orleans Museum of Art, earning him the Kohlmeyer Legacy Award and Coastal Stewardship Award, among many others. With the upcoming book, For the Birds, an artist Aviary set for now, it's out. It features over 100 bird paintings and poems. Alex's story of blending art, family life at the Pink Elephant. I've been there. Wait till you see some of the pictures. And protecting endangered species. I mean, it's really something. And he's doing something, and we can all be doing something. It's the real deal. He is the real deal, proving creativity can drive positive change. Alex, thank you so much for being here. Your energy and insights are exactly what we need to spread far and wide. Let's dive in and celebrate some beauty.
Hi, Cynthia. How are you? Nice to see you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure, my pleasure, my pleasure. One of my favorite books that I got when I visited you is this one.
Yeah, Brush with Nature. That was a good one.
And
that'll walk you through the intrinsic way in nature that things move.
And here is his dolphin signature right there.
Oh, yeah, look at that. I must have liked you.
Yeah, I think so. Look, we're still friends all these decades later. We met actually at a mastermind that Jeffrey Gittimore had in his studio. He's an amazing studio. We'll show you some pictures of that in a few minutes. But Alex, what inspired your journey from New York City roots to basing your life and art in New Orleans for the past 30 years?
Well, I grew up in New York City. That's true. And when I got to be in my teens, I started traveling to visit my uncle, who had a ranch outside of Nairobi in Kenya for the summers. And I sort of got the travel bug, right? And I particularly got the wildlife and wilderness bug. And so I went away to boarding school, and then I was off at college and traveling and like that. And when I got out of college, I didn't want to still live in New York full time, but I wasn't brave enough yet to move to Nairobi or Calcutta or something like that. And I was invited to come to the New Orleans Academy of Fine Arts for a year to draw and paint under a great old master named Ozoclis Ozols, who interestingly enough just died, unfortunately, of old age, to just show that we're all getting old. And then I just loved it here, and I stayed, right? I mean, you know, New Orleans is a very creative place. So people associate it particularly with jazz and cooking and sort of the celebratory nature of Mardi Gras and Jazz Fest and that sort of thing. But it's one of these river cities that faces the world, and so we get a little bit of everybody through here, in sort of a sultry, um, sort of little odd republic at the bottom of the United States. It's almost more like it's at the top of the Caribbean, frankly.
Mhm.
And so this has just always been a great place for me both to live and to make the work that I do. And there's a distinction. You can be a New Orleans artist, or you could be an artist who lives in New Orleans. And I'm the latter much more than the former. So New Orleans is a place that I live for lifestyle, and inspiration's a screwy word, but the muse lives on every corner here. So it's conducive.
Yeah. When I was there, his studio is wonderful. So he has a studio, which his shop is in the front. He had a shop um, in the main quarters, right? And then when the floods came and the waters rose, you moved back to New York, and then you moved back to New Orleans to the Pink Elephant section.
Yeah, well, yes, that's all a little crosswise, but yes. So I had a big open studio in the French Quarter before Hurricane Katrina. That's true. And then after Katrina, I went back up to New York for 3 years and did that in Soho. And since I'm from New York, it seemed, like a good idea.
Mhm.
But ultimately, I did it because I wanted to be able to come back to New Orleans. And Katrina taught a lot of people a lot of things. And one of the things that it taught me was that you needed options. And the fewer options you had, the closer you got to the Superdome, to be, if you put it in those terms. And so I went back up to New York so I could start my publishing career and my licensing career and get my art a little more back into the mainstream, so that I could then come back to New Orleans, have this as my home, where I make it, where I show a lot of it, but not only being dependent on the people walking down my street.
You coined the term abstract naturalism for your
True.
wildlife compositions. Can you explain what that means and how it evolved in your work?
Sure. I mean, the easiest way to explain what it means is just to look over my shoulder. Um, Abstract naturalism is a term that I came up with so I could describe to people at cocktail parties what I did, right? I mean, people at a cocktail party, they ask you, what do you do? And you say you're an artist, they say, oh, what do you paint? And they don't really care what the answer is, um, especially if it's a complicated one, which this sort of is. So I decided that I would try to encapsulate it in a phrase, and abstract naturalism made sense to me. So if you take the abstract expressionists as the culmination of, call it, 100 years of deconstruction of that which is realistic into its essence of movement and color and light and feeling. Um, I then start from that point with the gestural abstraction, just the sort of generic, not generic, excuse me, the genuine intrinsic way in nature that things move as articulated through the gesture in almost mindlessly, in the artwork, to then be able to pull the life back out of it again. It's a little bit like lying in the grass on your back and looking at the clouds,
Hmm.
and this one looks like a dragon and this one looks like a railroad train, and you're sort of, trying to put these things together. And I'm very much doing that in my paintings. I'm creating puzzles for myself that require solving in order for the piece to have dynamism. If it's rote, you just know what you're doing, they tend to come out flat. There needs to always be there needs to be to say a problem that needs solving implies that there's something wrong, which there isn't. So there's a puzzle that needs solving, that's being sort of designed as I solve it, if that makes any sense to you.
Actually, it does, but it wouldn't have if I hadn't been there in person.
Right.
Let's take a little tour through my visit there, Eric, and put up some of those pictures. Let
Yes,
Alex.
I'd love to see. Oh, look at that. There I am, looking
Look at
young and chipper.
look at that. That was so fun. And there you are, signing this book, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, yeah. Proof that
How
we
cool is
exist.
that? How often do you change that back picture behind you?
Oh, that's been gone for years.
I
I mean,
love that one.
everything that's here, people buy and they get shipped
Right.
off all over the world. So it's constantly turning over.
And you know
Um,
what else is very cool about that is he has like station, like there's so many things that you can get. These are my favorite ones. Look at that. Look at these
That was
pictures.
that was an actual puzzle.
This whole series is amazing. This one is from the ground up.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good abstract naturalism example.
Killer whale.
Yeah, that's a piece of the much larger painting. But I thought that one turned out okay.
The painting of life.
Yes, and that's the wraparound cover of that book that you have is that painting.
Oh, that's why I like it so much. And we'll
Yeah,
go to
you know,
birds.
the nature of those is the more you look at them, the more you find, right? I mean, I want to engage you. So I think by looking at those and at the one that's behind me, you can sort of get the sense of that of movement in these various pieces, which is the key.
Grace Cavalieri, hello. She wrote, brilliant work, a brilliant genius. Yes, Alex Beard certainly is that. Alex,
and I write
as well as
too,
your
in the
visual
book.
arts.
That's
Excuse me.
true. That's true. Grace has it exactly right. I've written multiple parables. All of those tales from the watering hole were written by me. Of course, I've written the introductions for my various coffee table books. And in the newest one for the birds, I wrote 23, I think 22 or 23 poems to accompany the paintings. I love writing. All of the things that I do are narrative in some fashion or another, even when they're totally abstract, right? I mean, it's all about telling stories. Some of it's illustrative, which tends to be a little caricatured. So I try to stay as far away from that as I can, unless I'm doing it for the purposes of accompanying the stories that are for the kids' books from the Tales from the Watering Hole. But you know, the painting that's behind me is narrative after a fashion. It's just not a linear story. But I like the writing part of it too. I don't see why we have to be pigeonholed as only a thing. If I was once described, actually, back when there was artistic commentary, you know, art critics and that sort of thing, and people, me in particular, had an exhibition, and an art critic would come and they'd write a review. And one of them wrote, I think his intention was to be a little snarky, but I just loved it. He said that I was like a whale swimming through the ocean with my mouth open. And he meant that as criticism, that I was taking in too much and putting too much out. And I took it to be exactly the opposite. Like, yes, I sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't. You know, I want there to be variety in what I make, variety in what people can see. It keeps me fresh in the doing of it. And hopefully it keeps it fresh in the eyes of my collectors and the people who read my books and see my work. I want there to be a development.
Killer
Yeah, there is.
whales.
Killer whales.
Look at that. Eric, will you please put up Alex's new book for the birds so everyone can see that? That's the new book for the birds. And there is his website, alexbeardstudio.com. So you can order it there. I'll be ordering mine. I have some other birds that you did someplace here. Here they are. It was a peacock series.
Oh yeah, there's definitely some peacocks.
Do you remember that? So
I do, of course. My wife was the one who suggested that I do peacocks, and she was, of course, as always, absolutely right. They're fun to make, those peacocks, because ultimately the feathers, the splay of the feathers contains both a lot of movement and the aspect of a color wheel. So you can do multiples and have them always be very, very different, both in how I do them and how they come across. Show the next one and people can see what I mean. Yeah, right? I mean,
Emerald Isle.
Just by changing the way that the color scheme works, it dramatically changes the way the entirety feels. And if you look carefully at the two, you can see that the bodies of them are not all that dissimilar. They're more almost like vanishing points, diminishing points. And then the splay of the feathers that comes off. Yeah, there you go. You see? I mean, they're not the same, but they originate from the same source.
And then we have.
Yes, there you go. Walking across.
And in the same kind of color palette, if you were redecorating your house almost, look at this. Aren't these incredible, ladies and gentlemen? Just look. Just look at artistry, the magic, the stories you could write, the stories you can tell.
Grace is asking, is it oil or acrylic? And the answer is no acrylic. Either they're in oil on canvas or in ink on paper. There are people who use acrylic to good effect. I don't happen to be one of them. I don't, it's not a medium that I particularly enjoy. Part of the problem with it for me is that because the binder of the medium is plastic based, whatever you do to it, it always has that plastic sheen. And you can, if you want that effect, you could create it with varnish and oil and all kinds of other things if you're using oil paint. But if you don't want it and you're using acrylic, you're stuck with it. So I prefer the oil, even though some people think it's a little harder to use because you got to wait for layers to dry, etc. But I view very much what I do to be both a passion and a craft. So I kind of nerd out on the particulars of the mediums.
And then we have the jungle grapevine.
Yes, that was the first of the Tales from the Watering Hole that I wrote. It's a game of telephone, and that's the signature, obviously. But the map that it's written on is the real key there, because it's the landscape of the entirety of all four of those Tales from the Watering Hole, and any future ones I do. In fact, I put I knew what a number of those books were going to be long before this one came out. So I was able to put where they occurred in there. If you're particularly wonky, you can figure it out.
Ooh, and you also drew the map of New Orleans in your style.
I did do a map of New Orleans. I did that for some anniversary of the New Orleans the historical collection. I can't remember what the 300th anniversary, maybe 350th anniversary. New Orleans has been here for a minute. I mean, not compared to European cities, but compared to American cities, this is one of the older ones. And so they asked me to do a map of the French Quarter. And of course, the French Quarter has changed a lot over time. And if you do a lot of contemporary things, then people get quite fussy that you put this in and not that. So I think that the rule was that it had to be there before 1900. And then I put quite a lot of that in there. It's multiple layers of the original footprint of what the French Quarter looked like.
And if you go to his website, I think there's a picture of it in there. Yes,
Eric, I'm sure you can see him there. Yeah.
Let's finish with show and tell here and show some of the pictures from my visit there.
That's called the West Indian Garden. That was also an original that was done for a puzzle.
Beautiful.
Seashells, again, an original done specifically for a puzzle. Beggar's Tomb, that's a Grateful Dead reference. That's in my studio. And for all of you Deadheads out there, you'll know what Beggar's Tomb is. For those of you that are not, it's the name of a silver mine, in short.
Love.
Yeah, that's a good one. You can see the nature of the gesture that it's built out of, right? When I was talking before about abstract naturalism being a starting point of the gesture and then pulling the life back out of it, that's a very good example. It all would have started with the swirl and the splash that make up the sort of the shoulder joint. And then it's a matter of just sort of twisting it around and figuring out what wants to live inside of it and then pulling that out. It's one of those things where the more you impose your will on it, the less likely it is to succeed. You have to let it guide you a little.
Yes, like life.
Very much like life.
You got a few.
Yes, ignore the universe of your own peril. That's an interesting painting. That started as a painting of somebody else that I did probably 25 years ago or more, maybe even 30 years ago. And it was gone for a couple of decades. I didn't see it. And then the person who had it had a couple of them and he wanted to resell them and he wanted to know if I would take them on consignment. And I said that I would, but that I wanted to rework this one. And in the course of doing it, it's sort of turned into a self-portrait. Yeah, that's an odd one. That's the many facets and faces of the artist.
Ooh, ooh. And
Those
this
are
is
all old journals of mine.
yeah. Is that in the workshop part, or is that in the front shop part?
Sort of in between the two. I mean, anybody can go and see that. You can't go rifling through them because they're inside of a glass case. But those are, if you look at the sign there, it says my sketchbooks from 1988 to 1993, I guess. Maybe 94, 95. Must be 95 because the one right beneath it is 94. And so as I did all my travels around the world, then I did all the work that I did for photographic, collage, drawing, etc., writing, all in journals and sketchbooks. They're not for sale, but you can see them.
What a wonderful memoir to have. You can do so much with that.
It
Probably
goes to
write.
show, I'll tell you, it goes to show how different life has become because I went through some of them recently and they're full of old phone numbers and stuff,
Yeah,
right? Because you used to have to write down, if you wanted to get in touch with somebody, you had to actually know their number. You couldn't just Google a name and
right. And
have
probably addresses and like little notes, who
all
had the
kinds of little
children
things.
and where you saw them, what the party was or not, and yeah.
Exactly
Okay,
right.
what else we
All
got?
of
We got
that.
I want to get that one with Jeffrey Gittimore and the team. Oh, the lion.
Yeah, there's a little
I like him. Let's go hit that. What's next? We'll just go in the order you got there.
buffalo. These are probably the big five.
Ooh, and
Oh, no, that's me.
Mombasa. Oh, let's talk about the elephant. Let's talk about the 12-year-old. Let's talk about the little gentleman that carved this for me in Mombasa right on the street in like 4 minutes.
Yeah, there you go. Well, tell us about him.
Tell us about the 12-year-old and her foundation and interning with you.
Okay. That's what you mean when you say 12-year-old. Got it. I thought the 12-year-old was your little Mombasa boy. No. So I started a public charity years ago called the Watering Hole Foundation. And its explicit intention is to raise money and awareness for endangered species conservation. It started primarily in East Africa because I spend a lot of time there. I try to go every year for at least a month. And I was often making art while I was there on safari, and then I'd bring it back and I'd sell it. And then I decided that I wanted to be able to create a device whereby I could do what I was already doing, as in make the art there, bring it back, sell it, but then turn around and give the money back to the conservancies where I was camping and walking and doing all that sort of thing. And so the Watering Hole Foundation was formed out of that. Like these these charities, these public charities, it's true of companies too. The nature of the world is you come up with an idea and it's like a sort of a fragile little dragon's egg, and then it takes off and it hatches, right? And the next thing you know, it's got it's a two-headed fire-breathing beast. And so that's sort of the nature of what happened with the Watering Hole Foundation. I started it as this simple thing, and then people got interested in it, and it sort of grew and grew and grew. And one of the things that came out of that was there was a girl whose name was Anna Finger, who was at school a couple of classes above my son. And her father was a friend of mine, and she was getting her bat mitzvah. And she had to do some kind of a public charity community service kind of aspect to it.
Mm-hmm.
And she asked if she could do something with me. So we came up with this thing called Anna for Elephants. We built a life-size paper mache elephant at Jazz Fest and paraded it around. And then she raised a bunch of money, which we then gave to the Ngari Ndari Forest Trust, which is a World Heritage Site on the edge of Mount Kenya. And then she and her father came on a walking safari with me, and we went to the forest that she had donated the money to. And in fact, the Ngari Ndari Forest Rangers named one of the waterfalls in the forest after Anna. So Anna's waterfall is trickling away as we speak somewhere on the slopes of Mount Kenya.
I love it. 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 And Kevin, hello. Thank you for being with us. I'm glad that you love elephants too. And hi to Robert. And I thought one of my books had an elephant in it. But anyway, let's go see the rest of these pictures, and then I've got a pile more questions.
There's Jeffrey Gitomer.
There's Jeffrey Gitomer and Dan Ottmeyer, and who was that?
Yes,
these are all
people packed into my studio.
Yes, this is his studio. There's Wyatt Woodsmall, as a matter of fact. Melvin Foote. His whole family was there, as a matter of fact. And you can see how interesting that everyone is like glued to what Alex is saying. It was so interesting.
That guy on the left,
you're here, and look, you're famous. You're in there. Dan Ottmeyer goes, Alex is an amazing artist and an amazing person. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. So that's Dan taking notes with his glasses on and his hat there in the far left-hand corner.
Nice to see you, Dan.
What fun. And that was Jennifer there. Look at this one. Tell us. There's our elephant.
Well, so one of the reasons I spend so much time in East Africa is I love elephants. I've spent a lot of time with them in my life. When I go during the summers, I go with the express purpose of tracking elephants just for the pleasure of being with them on foot. We sleep on the ground in little meat sacks, and we've got lions in camp and that sort of thing, but you got to go where the wildlife is if you want to be with it. And so that photograph, that's an old photograph. That's me in the foreground taken. I was probably 20 or 21, maybe a little younger, maybe a little older. And if I remember correctly, that was taken in Botswana in the Seguta Valley. I took a long drive then across what was then still Southwest Africa, up the Namib coast, across into Botswana, down the Savuti, over to Vic Falls in Zimbabwe, up the Zambezi, across to Zambia and back. And it was a several month trip, just sleeping on the ground every night. There was no infrastructure or anything then. So, people now that go on safari to Botswana, they fly into Maun, and it's pretty swank. And at the time that I was there, it was 2 goat tracks in a hut. And so we were tracking elephants all across Southern Africa. And at the time I was a little foolhardy, and I used to get a little closer than I probably should, but that all turned out fine.
Have you ever touched an elephant? If you touch an elephant, their hair is
many.
really, really long, and it's hard. It's like porcupine-ish. It hurts.
No, I mean, I've touched many elephants, but not in the wild like that. That's
dangerous.
That's not a good idea.
I have some elephant tail. This is some hair from their tail.
Yes.
And they do intricate knots, so you can actually slide them back. And they're, I don't know, not expensive. And some turtle shell bracelets off from Nairobi, Kenya.
Yeah, they're very good luck. Those elephant hair bracelets.
I'm so blessed.
They come out of the tail.
Okay, so here you are.
That picture was taken in Alaska. When I got out of college, my father and I went on a long fishing trip. We flew, the 2 of us and a guide who actually, as it turns out, had never been on this river that we were on. And we went in a float plane 2.5 hours out of Kenai up into the saddle between the Aleutian and Alaska mountain ranges. And then we floated down a river called the Chiligadratna, which feeds into the Mulchatna, for a couple of weeks fishing. And, so again, like the way I like to do it on the ground and sleeping in tents and bears and all that kind of good stuff. Fabulous fishing for anybody who's interested in that sort of thing. And my father and I had a contest. My surname is Beard, as you can gather. So we had the beard growing contest, and the loser had to shave, as in whoever had the scruffier beard, had to shave on the river before we could fly out. And so that's a night or 2 before we flew out, with me stuck in a cooler having to shave off my quite scruggly beard.
That's fabulous. What fun.
And all my socks and hat are resting on a caribou antler. As part of this trip, as you're floating down the river, we came into the midst of a caribou migration, and it sounded like a freight train and lasted for half an hour. And so we just had to pull over as this infinite number of caribou came across the river. And they were in the season where some of them were dropping their antlers. So I picked that up off the side of the banks of the river and stuck it in my raft. And then, I don't know, back then it was, pre 9/11. So I think I just put that in the overhead.
Remember when you could do that?
Still here in my studio. I'm looking at it right now.
Oh, that is so fun. That is so fun. What a great story. You got anything else for us on here, Eric? Are we okay? Good. So let's go back to how smart he is. And I wanted to say hi. Oh, Dan Altmeyer had a question. Eric, there. Did you sell that?
Yes.
Is that the one you had your eye on, Dan? Too bad. That's been gone a while.
Yeah, I mean,
What,
the nature of the beast here, is much to my delight, is that enough people like what I make that as I make it, they buy it. So I consider myself to be very lucky in that case. And it allows me quite a lot of freedom because I don't have to spend my life trying to second guess what I think people might want. Instead, I just get to paint. It's not exactly what I feel because that's a little narcissistic, but the art gets to sort of take me in unexpected directions, and usually that's where the dynamism of the pieces come from. But what that then in turn means is, as I make them, if you want them, you better get them because they don't stick around for very long. Unfortunately, people have that assumption, like 2 years later, the painting that I made will still be there, and that's true of zero.
if you're really lucky,
So
maybe
Dan, the next time I make
stationery out of it.
yeah, Dan, the next time I make an egrets painting, be Johnny on the spot.
Okay, Dan. Keep in touch with Jim Quails. He's fabulous at letting you know when things are up.
That's true. Jim's the best.
Yeah, he's his gallery director over at the Alex Beard Studio. So, with a BA in history from Tufts and art studies in Boston, New York, and New Orleans, how did your education shape this very unique approach you have to painting?
Well, I think there's two ways to answer that question. One is there's the learning the physical skills of the craft itself, right? And so in that case, I did do some study because you're not just, unless you're Picasso, which I'm not, you're not just born as a prodigy. You've got to sort of figure out how to do it as you go along. So part of it is that schooling is important for learning the tools of the trade. And I think that this is perhaps a better way to answer that question. I have an Emersonian approach to education. And what that means is find what you're interested in. Look for somebody who knows more about that subject than you do. Learn everything you can from them. And then find somebody else that knows more about something else that you're interested in than you do and go find out what you can about them. So my education is ongoing. I mean, there's a classical go to class every day approach to things, which has its place, but going to art school for the sake of going to art school is a waste of everybody's time, theirs and yours. So I'm much more of an advocate for experiential education, well-rounded knowledge of the past, the present, and how that might lead to where we're headed in the future. Conversation, one-on-one with as many people doing as varied a scheme of things as you can imagine, so that you learn a lot about a little, and then focus in on the subjects that really interest you and learn everything that you possibly can about them, like a sponge in the ocean, right? I mean, you want to be, if you're engaged in a thing as much as I am, you're constantly engaged in it. There's no end date other than an RIP.
Roger that. And thank goodness you're here to play with us.
Still for a minute or two yet, hopefully.
Ooh.
It's one of the things I like so much about being a creative type. There is no retirement date. You just do it.
Yeah.
And
Forever.
as I say, I'm constantly learning. I make a ton of mistakes. I don't exactly relish them, but I do learn from them, and they're valuable.
Excellent, as we all do. Your artworks are prominent in prominent collections like the Ogden Museum and the New Orleans Museum of Art. What does receiving the Kohlmeyer Legacy Award mean to you?
Not very much, to be honest.
Okay,
Accolades,
just doing your thing, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's always flattering to be recognized. I usually think there's an ulterior motive, right? I mean, there's almost all praise comes with a price, and usually it's pretty fleeting. So I'm much more partial to one-on-one. People see the paintings that I make, they reach out specifically to me, or I see them here at the studio, or I see them when I'm on tour or whatever. And I can see that a connection has been made between me and them through the work that I've made, and then it's had an impact. That's much more significant to me than accolades are. Now, there is a side that says, if you're interested in longevity and success as a career and that sort of thing, getting those things are important, and having your work in prominent collections is important, etc. But I don't spend too much time cultivating that, to be honest. Maybe to my detriment, but I'm more interested in the making of the work. I think that the making of the work and the sort of the meeting the meeting the people out there who are interested in what I make, either those who know it already or those who don't yet. And so, I mean, look, at the end of the day, the work that I make, nothing is infinite, right? It's all going to be dust eventually. And true of the household names too. So if you dwell on ideas of fame and notoriety, it tends towards vanity in a way which is counterproductive. Um, Instead, I consider myself so lucky to be the person that I actually am, which is a little intimidated by fame, even though I know lots of famous people, and sometimes people think that I peripherally even fit into that. Makes me a little uncomfortable. Um, I'm much more at ease as just I'm not running for president because I think that people want to have a beer with me, right? I mean, I'm not the Joe who you're going to meet at the end of the bar and talk about plumbing with. I don't mean it that way. Um, Although there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. But it's much more that um, I love the life that I've been given. The
Mhm.
I love my wife and my children and my household. We've got a new puppy in our house, and what a great delight to run around after a 10-week-old puppy, and the ability to come to my studio every day and work on things that I find truly engaging, that engage with other people. What a lucky life I lead. I travel all over the world. I get to go to places where there are more animals than people and more people than animals. And I find great inspiration's a screwy word, but I find both motivation and solace in both camps. Um, I love being in an entirely natural environment where all of your senses are awake and aware, and the smallest details stand out to you as extraordinary. And I also love being in the middle of a giant crowd with the buzz and activity of the interactions of the populace. So my life sort of fits squarely somewhere between those two camps, and I consider myself very lucky to be there. And that would be true whether I won the Kohlmeyer Circle honor or not.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
By the way,
So
I don't mean to piss on the Kohlmeyer
no,
Circle. It
no.
was very nice of them to think of me. Thank you.
Living in the Pink Elephant in New Orleans Garden District with your family. How many dogs do you have now? Two?
Two,
Three?
two,
Two
two, no,
dogs?
two. We always like to have one big one and one little one.
Two cats still?
Yeah,
Hedgehog?
hedgehog died.
Turtle?
Yeah,
And what else did I miss?
there were quite a lot of birds for a while, but we let the birds go, and now we just cultivate them in the garden. We've got cardinals and blue jays and orioles in season and all like that. No, it's enough right now for the in pet land.
And so all of this vibrant home life inspires your creativity as well.
Yeah, I don't see them as being separate. My
And
whole life is a continuity.
Yeah,
I don't see clocking out at the end of the day to then be able to go to a different existence. I
yeah.
just my whole life is my
Perfect.
whole life is no, it's far from perfect. But I mean, look,
Really? Sounds kind
I've,
of
I've,
perfect.
I've got a pretty good life, but Everybody's got demons that live on their shoulders and bills that you got to pay and whatever, right? I mean, there's life. The guy that drives up Magazine Street at 15 miles an hour for no damn good reason, right? I mean, there's lots of little niggly things that can get you off your game. Um, but look, this comes back to New Orleans, frankly. I mean, the life that I lead is partly because of living in New Orleans. This is a city that is conducive to it and allows it. So the pink elephant you keep referring to is the name of my house, and it's called that because it's a white elephant, but it happens to be pink. And so I also sort of like that labor of living in a big old garden district house that constantly requires maintenance and attention, and it's got all kinds of odd nooks and crannies and lots of elbow room and a couple of staircases and high ceilings, right? And then packed into it is all the eclectica of my life. Very little of my own art, although some. I keep all the covers from my own books, but almost nothing else. And then things that I've collected myself, feathers and quills and little things like that from my walks, and spears and umbrella stand, little rungus and artwork that I've collected around the world, and old American folk art that I particularly like, duck decoys and goose decoys, and and then it's all very lived in, right? I mean, so I don't live in a showpiece. I live in a working environment, but it's pretty groovy, but it's yeah, it's home.
Beautiful. I love it.
Yeah, me too.
I can picture it. So I was going to ask you what your favorite thing is, but I know that each one of those was your favorite thing when you got it.
Well, yes. I mean, as I said before, I'm partial to elephants. My favorite thing, what's my favorite thing? I mean, my favorite thing really is experience. And what I mean by experiences, I mean experiences. My favorite things are experiences. And the things that I have are reminders of experiences more than they are collectibles. Some of them, I suppose, probably are collectibles and valuable and like that sort of thing, but I don't have them for that reason.
So back to exhibiting in New York, Los Angeles, New Orleans, Hong Kong. What's one memorable solo show that stands out for you?
Well, they both all mix together and all stand out in their own right. Again, a lot of it has to do with the people who I get to see when I'm doing them. When I was doing those shows in New York, I mean, look, I'm about to have another event in New York in a couple of weeks at the Explorers Club, signing books and auctioning off some art for to benefit the Lewa Wildlife Conservancy in East Africa. So that one stands out to me because I'm thinking about it at the moment. But shows in New York that I've done in the past, I used to. I always want people to come to my shows. And I don't want it to be white glove, velvet rope kind of events. So the nature of an exhibition generally is you spend a ton of time by yourself making the work, and then you put it up in a gallery. You invite everybody you know for one night. They all either come or they don't. And then you spend 3 weeks watching spiders spin webs in the corners while the gallery's waiting for the next show to open. And maybe you sell a thing here, you sell a thing there, but it's all based off of a single night. And I find that very, I don't like the rhythm of that. I don't mind the big opening, but if it's just the big opening, then that's just smoke in the ass, right? I mean, it's very shallow. So I used to do, when I had my first shows in New York, I would just have open artists nights where we'd have little drawing marathons and little drawing duels. And I would get up in front of the, 30 or 40 or 50 people each night, and I would talk about baseball and, whatever happened to come into my mind. Talk about the art, of course, and answer questions. And I like that format. I used to have a lot of dinner parties in the spaces themselves. They're all ways of getting people to come and see my art in a way where they could do it on their own time instead of telling them they could only be there from 6 to 8 on such and such a night. and giving them then multiple options for the kinds of ways that they would like to engage with me and the work that I'm making. So some people prefer coming to an opening. Some people like to just come 2 or 3 people in an afternoon and have a cup of coffee. Some people like to come to a dinner party, right? So you give as many different options as possible. I like doing that show in Hong Kong. That was pretty cool. The thing that's the most memorable of that is after, I mean, there was some stuff to do with the show that was memorable, doing some press events at the old English press clubs and that sort of thing. But the most memorable part of that trip was I went with my wife after the show was over up to the Yan Mountains, which is about 3 hours north of Beijing, to where the Great Wall of China is on the precipices of the Yan Mountains, which are quite steep and jagged. And we went up and we stayed in an old wall builder's hut at the base of this valley. And then we'd get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and climb up to the top of these mountains, which was quite arduous to do. But then once you were on the top of the mountains, you could then get on the Great Wall, which was, there was no renovation or anything done to it. It wasn't like Badaling where you take a bus and you go and you see it for 5 minutes and you get a picture taken and you go back. This was really more like an adventure, an outdoors adventure. And you'd climb up these precipices and get on the wall into these huge, steep precipices that you'd have to climb up and down. And it was extraordinary. We watched the sun come up over the Yan Mountains and then climb down off the mountains and got on a plane and flew back to New York. I remember that being, actually, I remember, I haven't thought about this in a while. That was the beginning of the end for Western civilization. I was on the top of the Yan Mountains as the sun was coming up, and it was the first time I ever got a cell phone call in the middle of nowhere. And it was from my 2-year-old son back in New York saying, "Mommy, come home," as it happens. But the point of it was that I had gone to the ends of the earth, and even there I could be reached. And it was a transition moment where for a long time when I go walking in Kenya, you'd go on these long walks and you're just off the grid. There was you wanted to get in touch with somebody, too bad. And when we were growing up, that's the way the world was, right? I mean, you could make a phone call, you could send somebody a letter. If you wanted to see them, you had to go see them. And then there was that transition that happened over the course of the last 30 years where all of a sudden our tendrils reached to the last stretches of the ends of the earth. And in some ways it should have tied us all together, but of course it did the opposite. It tore us all apart. So yes, that's what I remember from that show. My 2-year-old son bursting my bubble.
Yeah.
When I got back 3 days later, I had bought all of this stuff for him in China, little suits.
Yeah,
and whatever.
adorable stuff. Yeah,
adorable stuff, right? Because when I was little, my parents would go traveling and then they'd come back with exotic things, and I always loved it. And so I brought him all this stuff, and I walked into the apartment because I was living in New York at the time. And he looked at me and he said, "Go back to China." He was so angry at me for having gone away.
Oh, he missed you. That's so lovely.
Yeah. Thankfully, he got over it.
Yeah, I remember when we were living in the Seychelles Islands, we lived on La Misère, the top of the mountain. They called it La Misère because they thought it was so cold you had to wear a sweater occasionally. But I'd be like 3 mountains away, just in my top shorts and Keds, and I hear my mother calling out my full name, and I was be like, "Oh no, I'm gonna be in so much trouble." And no matter how fast I went, I mean, I was like hours away because I go up and down, and and I just take a leaf and fold it and drink out of the waterfalls, and
delightful.
Heaven.
Yeah, heaven.
I took a lovely walk today on quiet waters by the water to be in the right state for our interview tonight.
There you go.
It's beautiful. I would rather, when we were little, I used to rather polish Dad's car than do anything domestic in the house. I just Never quite got to that. Let's talk a little bit more about For the Birds so that everyone knows about it. What inspired this collection for over 100 never before seen birds and
Never
paintings
before
and
seen.
poems?
I enjoy painting and drawing birds. There's a whimsy inherent to them in their feathers and beaks and plumage, and they're very conducive to. It's a word I've used too much, conducive, but regardless, it applies. Um, the movement, the gesture that's intrinsic to the way that things in nature move, birds are exemplary subjects to depict. Yeah, that one's actually birds made out of the head of a rhino.
Oh,
Um,
well, that wasn't a good one to pick out for that
it's
particular
okay, not a
example.
bad one, not a bad one, because
It's
you
so
know you find them
cool.
in all over the place. So at any rate, I decided that I wanted to do a bird book. The time had come for me to do a new. Yeah, that's a good example. Personality, they're quite anthropomorphic. Um, you can mix the lines between that which is real and that which is imagined, which I also enjoy. Um, and then birds are ubiquitous. Wherever you go, there are birds, right? So they're these great reminders of the natural world, whether you're off in the farthest flung jungle or you're sitting in Central Park, right? I mean, everywhere you go, there are birds. So they're a nice they're a nice tag to remind us of the natural world that we're a part of. And then I just enjoy doing them, right? And I also, of course, thought that people might like seeing them. So as a result, bird book.
There are so many bird watchers. There's an owl that often comes to quiet waters and everyone lines up. I'm finding lots of animals. Oh, I love this one. There's a couple of birds in it, maybe. In this
Yeah, I mean,
particular
the
book,
bird
he has
book.
these foldouts, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Check this out. So look at this.
Yeah, that's
And
the
you could play a game with your children and you could say, how many animals could you find? That could keep you busy for a really long time. And what does the animal do, think, eat? What's their story?
well, that's true. That you would not be the first person to have ever done that, I think.
So fabulous.
Before we go, before we go, because I know that we've got a limited window, I have a copy of the new for the birds book here, and if you'd like, I'll read you one of the poems in it.
Oh, perfect. Yes, please.
Because I did all of these poems, I might as well share them with the world.
Yes, thank you.
Let's see, what's a good one to do? Well,
Sure, they're all good if they're in your book.
let's do the vulture.
Ooh, I don't like vultures. They're scary, but they do serve the world by cleaning up after.
That is exactly the reason to read the vulture poem. I could maybe read you a couple. Let's see.
Yes, please.
All right, so this is the vulture. Sorry,
You're good.
Yeah, okay. When you think about a vulture, it's much derided in our culture. We're led to dwell on things decayed, like festered flesh that's just been flayed. But that's unfair, you squeamish souls. Vultures serve important roles. They clean the mess that lions leave, a part of nature's vital weave, where naught is left to go to waste, unlike in our thoughtless haste, where we dispose of what we've gotten to go get more that's just as rotten.
Ooh.
That's the vulture poem.
Ooh. Ooh. Powerful.
Here's another one. This one's the hawk. This is also kind of bleak. I'll have to read you a cheerful one at the end. The hawk. A hawk on the wing is awfully bleak against an empty sky. It's lonely if a friend you seek to help you make it by. When all the world's alight and gay and you feel left unwanted, the hawk is there to show the way if you're bereft and haunted. He does not care about your woes, despite your mournful pining. Where the vole or rabbit goes, and on which he'll be dining, is why he screams his piercing call, till when the day turns bitter, and winter snow begins to fall, he hopes to have his critter. 'Cause later on you'll have your fill, beside a roaring fire, but he'll be out there flying still, ever more and higher, searching in the cold and gray, to sate his empty belly, for he is just a bird of prey, and you have lamb with jelly.
Mm.
That's the hawk. See
Mm.
if
Do
I
you have
can
an
find
eagle one?
you.
Eagles? Pink
Did
flamingos?
I do have a flamingo poem, yes. I can read the flamingos poem, 158. It's not a bad one.
And then lead us with a really happy one.
And then I'll leave you with a really happy one. Well, the flamingo one's not unhappy.
Okay, good. They can't be unhappy, although they're very smelly, but they're so pretty.
All right. So this is called The Plight of the Flamingo's Flight.
Mm.
During their business of preening and such, the flamingo flock worries too much. Before the croc, they stand on one legs and fish for morsels in marshy dregs. But when the croc's mouth snaps agape, the birds take off to beat an escape. Across the water and to the far shore, where the buffalo snoozes, snuffling great snores. They land together, a flutter and flappy, and settle back down, content and happy. Grumpy Buffalo, on the other hand, thinks this beyond what he can stand. The birds disturbed his precious nap, and to a buffalo, that's cause for a flap. He shakes his boss and snorts a snort to give the flamingos a warning retort. They take back off and soar through the air, again to the side of the crocodile's lair. And that's the lot of the flamingo flock. They go back and forth around the clock, shooed by the buffalo or spooked by the croc, like time ticking its infinite talk.
Whew.
That's the flamingos.
Clever.
And how about the go-away bird? That's a good one to end on.
Okay.
All right, this is the go-away bird. When off in search of big-time game, of great big tuskers known by name, or rhinos deep in dappled shade, and buffaloes hunkered in a glade, there's some things you ought to know to keep you safe when on the go. Beware the wind that carries scent, and that which might the stillness rent. Don't speak up a noisy word, or spook a roosting go-away bird. For even if you're still and quiet, that warning bird can cause a riot. He'll tell the wildlife and their kin what tree or bush you're hiding in. And once they know that you're around, the game is up. Seed the ground.
Ooh.
Look at that. 3 poems. 3 more than you thought
Beautiful.
you'd get.
I know. I love it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. For visitors, you can go explore his gallery in New Orleans and support your foundation. But you're gone a lot. So how would they know when you were there? We had the most lovely tour when we were there. He answered the door barefoot and we went. And I don't know. I think we had to shoo us out after like 2 or 3 hours. And there he is. I am too, as a matter of fact, because I remember that.
There you go. Barefoot in the park. So if you want to come to the studio, I'm on Magazine Street in New Orleans, as you say, and the gallery's open just about every day. When I'm in New Orleans, I'm here just about every day, and so your chances of catching me are good. If you want to be sure that I'm here, the best thing is to send an email by going to the website, alexbeardstudio.com, and just ask if I'll be there at a certain time. And if the answer is yes, then come and see me.
And you can also set up an appointment with the Jim Quails. And
yes, you can. You can set up an appointment.
Group.
That's exactly right. You can set up an appointment to come and see me. I'm pretty old-fashioned the way that all that stuff works, right? I mean, if I'm around, I'm delighted to see you. If I'm not, I'm not.
You're not. You're there. You're not. Yeah. So it might be a great idea for students, and if you don't know what to do, and masterminds and groups, and just anyone who likes animals or birds. And you can go get For the Birds, which was released. And I'm going to be getting mine right after this, Alex Beard Studio. And if you buy it from there, you get it autographed. And I think I showed everyone the cool autographs that he does. So fun. So fun. Any final words that you want to leave us with?
Well, it's always a pleasure to be in your company. Thank you for having me with you. I hope I did all right.
You're fantastic.
Answered your questions more or less fully.
I had a whole pile more, but
yeah.
you were so interesting. I just didn't even bother with them because
and feel free to come and visit me anytime.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Here, see that, ladies and gentlemen? You have an invitation.
Yes,
In
the
New
horse's mouth.
Orleans, see Alex Beard, and you'll hear another story, or pick up a treasure, or heck, maybe even find out about the turtle and the saw nose. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Goodbye, ladies and gentlemen. Have a beautiful night. See us next week at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Cynthia Manion Show. Share this out. And if your friends missed it, watch the replay, because this is a one-of-a-kind from the famous Alex Beard with a Heart of Gold, Saving Elephants Foundations, Africa, and all the 25,000 species that are going extinct. You can do something in your area. You can start with just a simple stray cat. Really, a bug. Don't kill them. Put them out. The world needs them. Love you. Thank you. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.